CBRE invests in technology so that we can help you invest in your future. Find out more about how we can help you at cbre.com.
Welcome to the Silicon Slopes Town Hall. I'm Garrett Clark with Silicon Slopes, and today we're lucky to be joined by President Huftelen from Salt Lake Community College and President Watkins from the University of Utah. How are you?
Good. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, appreciate you both taking time. You're always busy, but I imagine you're even a little bit busier in 2020, and appreciate that. So we're going to ask questions about the future of education. We'll also revisit what you guys did in the past, 6-7 months. And then we'll talk about some mental health as it relates to your students. And if there's anything I don't cover, then feel free to jump in and let's cover that. So first question, we'll start with President Huftelen and then President Watkins. So like a lot of other industries, education had to move quickly in 2020, right? There's, depending on who you're talking to, there's certain days where things got real and then certain days for other folks. As presidents of your respective universities, how did you guys manage the moving parts in real time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I remember the day very, very well, very vividly, that we got the call that the governor was going to make a press conference, that we were all going online. And I will share that, we think about emergency response all the time. We talk about it, we put plans in place, but when something really hits, you do start to kind of think through, did I really think about this the right way, or what have we missed? And so I think for us at Salt Lake Community College, the biggest thing to do that we did first and foremost is find a way to centrally create a website that was central, that we could continually push out information, because information was changing so rapidly. Yeah. We knew our employees and our faculty and our students were going to be wondering what was going on. And so a central web page became imperative. But we actually were lucky in the sense that we'd had a lot of online classes already. Most of our gen ed classes had a really robust online kind of exposure. And so many of our faculty were already doing it, and it wasn't as big a rush to get them up to speed. Some certainly had to come up to speed. Yeah. But I think having a task force established right off the bat with the functional areas represented, and then they met daily. Sometimes they just stayed together all day to figure things out. And having all those functional areas represented was helpful.
Yeah. And President Watkins, same question. How did you guys deal with it all in real time?
Just want to say I owe a tremendous debt of appreciation to the faculty, staff, leaders on our campus who pivoted incredibly quickly to make change. As in the case with Salt Lake Community College, as Denise mentioned, there were a number of people already using technology and online tools to help with learning, either partially, less certainly fully, but that helped, right? We had experts who could mobilize, and a teaching and learning excellence center that really helped people. I remember the week of spring break, which is right before all this happened in March. They were in the shop at the library 24/7, really helping people learn, prepare, pivot, move. So a lot of teams on campus put their good thoughts together and helped us adapt to change with the priority on health and well-being in our community. And everybody focused on that quickly. I can say that, there was a group of us that met every day at noon. The COVID briefing team met every single day at noon for quite a while. And for the most part, the approach really worked, because we have not had major outbreaks on our campus, and we've been able to manage things pretty well. It is a continuous improvement effort, data, pivot, change, adapt, try again. But I think for the most part, the critical work of education and research has been able to continue.
Yeah. So that spring break was actually kind of lucky. It seems like that there was that buffer to get prepared.
Yeah. Yes.
And so both of you, at some point, you're in a lonely position. The decisions need to be made. How do you, make those decisions respectively, starting with you, President Watkins? Because at some point, somebody's going to say yes or no. Are we doing this? How do you do that?
great to have a team that you can rely on. And I really use the president's cabinet heavily for that. That represents really all major areas of the university. It's wonderful to have University of Utah Health right there here with us and in that room. So you have health experts telling you, what their perspective is. You have to listen a lot, integrate emergency management, public safety has played a big role. And then at the end of the day, you have to make a decision. Not by yourself, but somebody has to make the call. And so I think the critical skill is getting a lot of wise people around you, listening carefully, and then, when the time is to make a decision, say, this is where I think we should go. Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, President Huffman.
I would just add that the other thing I would add is that in addition to great professionals on our campuses, respectively, our cabinets, our, the experts in different areas, I do think that the system of higher education in Utah, we have some great presidents right now. And I think we have a very positive relationship. And so many of us talk to each other and just kind of, compare. We have very different campuses in some ways. So it doesn't always work to do something that the other person's doing, but just having someone that's in that same role to weigh things with. I rely on Ruth a lot for that. And I hope people would rely on me. So it's nice to have those colleagues at that level as well.
Yeah. At least you have, 9 other folks that kind of sit in the same position and you can share notes. A couple of facts that I was looking into for, spring semester was tough and summer was tough. Fall, obviously tough now that there's more data and there's a lot of opinions, right? From students all the way to parents and everything in between. But I found some numbers from the College Crisis Initiative out of Davidson College. And they had they pulled 3,000 colleges. 44% were primarily or fully online this fall semester. 21% were hybrid. 27% were in person, and 8% did something else. I don't know what that something else is. How did the decisions you guys made in the spring and summer kind of impact fall semester? And what has worked well this fall semester? Starting with you, President Huffman.
Well, spring, we didn't have to make the decision. We had to go remote. So, right, everything went remote. We actually got an exception a little bit into spring semester and into the summer. We have so many hands-on kinds of programs, right? Welding, truck driving, dental hygiene. So we had to figure out a way. Once we had everybody learning remote, we kind of front-ended lecture or kind of content discipline courses. And then we recreated our lab so that we could bring people back with 6-foot distancing and with all of the plexiglass in place and all the safety. So we knew we had to accommodate that in-person learning in some places. So summer, we really kind of opened that up a little bit more because we started to learn now how it was spread, what kinds of risk mitigations we could put in place. So summer opened up a little bit better, and we actually had great enrollment for the summer. We were our enrollment was way up for the summer. And I think for fall, we just knew that we were probably going to have to do a combination, but we weren't sure what the student demand was going to be. Was everyone going to want to online? Was some people going to want to come back? And we ended up having about a 30% in person and the rest either hybrid or online for the fall. And I've been so pleased with our faculty that in both situations, the in-person faculty, I think, are here in person because they recognize the value of that teaching style. And they were very comfortable with the safety protocols we put in place. So we still have quite a few students on campus learning in that environment. And I really believe in that. And I will try to preserve that at any, as long as we can do it safely, because I think it's so important.
Yeah. President Watkins, same question there.
Yeah, I would say, the biggest thing that changed between March and August, as we think about spring to fall, is we learned a whole lot more about coronavirus, how it is and is not transmitted and what the risks are, and that we can actually conduct a lot of activities safely. Of course, this being our number one tool, our face coverings and being 6 feet away from each other and not getting together in groups. And so, that did help us a lot, as we have not seen transmission in classrooms when those rules apply. We've had many students living in our residence halls, and that's worked quite well. And we have had around a quarter of our classes in person and then hybrid and some mixed models too. And we, as President Huffdelen outlined, there's experiential learning that cannot happen. And we're going to hold people up from their degrees if they can't do their chemistry lab or continue with in clinical training in a health-related field. So we really don't want that to happen. We need students to stay on path and meet Utah's workforce needs and, more importantly, their own personal goals. So, we want to keep that going. We have been able to do that pretty well. I think the social issues for 18 to 25, and maybe all of us year olds, it's pretty hard, right, to ask people to make such modifications in their social and interactive behavior. I really give a shout out of respect to our students who have done remarkably well in a really challenging time. So keeping a priority on what is absolutely critical in education, and also, frankly, what technology can do very, very well for you, and using it more in that way. It's helped us.
Yeah. Yeah, we've always got a group of 10 interns from BYU, UVU, Salt Lake Community College, University of Utah. And so I've been able to, it's anecdotal, but I bet it's fairly accurate. Ask them, like, how are things? How are you actually coping with all this? Because a big part of college is flirting with girls and boys and going to parties. And, that's part of the growth that young people need. So I assume you guys are hearing a lot of chatter from students that would like those things to come back. And obviously there will be rogue parties and those types of events. But factoring all of that in, what are some moves you're making respectively to allow that part of college to continue?
Ruth probably has more of that on her campus than I do at mine. So I'll let Ruth chat about that.
We have learned remarkable ways to do things with technology. So fraternities and sororities doing Rush over Zoom, Friday night social events using technology, and it is not the same. And people do miss each other, and they're all eager to get back together when we can. So, I think I would have to say that some of those elements of what happens when you college experience for many people is about who you meet, about the network you build. People are doing that still. They're doing it in a different way. They're doing it this way, electronically. And they are, I'm sure, doing some in person as well. We hope that they're doing it more safely. We're trying to guide them to do it more safely, to do outdoor events whenever possible, to small interactive groups of people. And during this time, this is the end of finals week. So we're really encouraging everybody to pull back for the next and not start until January 19th in the spring, which we hope will help with reducing infection rates.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, kind of one more thing for the past, and then we'll kind of focus on the future. Along that vein, right? Like, people miss people and they miss the parties and football games and all of that, eating in the cafeteria. So mental health, mental wellness starts factoring in. And I would imagine it's a big priority for both of you with your respective students not being able to even interact with their professors in the same way, right? It's a little bit harder to schedule a call or to do all that instead of just wait in line. What are some things that, we'll start with you, President Watkins, that the University of Utah has done to kind of combat that and facilitate as much programming on the mental health side for your students as possible?
So we've learned a lot about this through the pandemic too. And one thing is that with our counseling center, on a typical week, a counselor has a lot of missed appointments. Maybe 25 to 30% are what we call no-shows. And I'm sure that's because students' lives are complicated. Having to travel to a counseling center is one more thing to do, and to park and to manage your life. Whereas with virtual counseling sessions, we have virtually zero no-show rate. So I am sure we're going to keep some elements of this even after the pandemic. Also, some group, really more prevention and wellness oriented groups have worked really well. for our students. And it tends to be more about anxiety, depression, and what can you do for self-care and managing your life well. That has been very effective. And then I really want to give a shout out to the Huntsman Mental Health Institute, which one of the strands of the Huntsman's generous gift is focused on college students and mental health. So we have some new approaches, new models, and research helping guide us as well.
Cool. President Huffelin, same question there on the mental health well-being.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that I worry about not only for our students but for our faculty and staff as well. In that, these days of isolation and long-term adjustments. In terms of our students, we've found, again, like President Watkins, we're doing virtual appointments. Our appointments in our counseling center are 20% higher than they were at this time last year. So students are accessing our counseling services at a much higher rate. We've actually had to extend. We've had some of our counselors who used to meet every other week with students. Some of those students are now meeting weekly, and some of our students are meeting twice a week because of the concern or the increased anxiety. One of the effective ways we've found to connect with students virtually is through these smaller communities like our Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs or our Gender and Sexuality Resource Center. So we're trying to embed the kind of counseling and mental health and wellness services into those smaller communities to just make sure that as students are connecting with their community, they're getting those resources around mental health. We launched an Instagram program called Mental Health Mondays. We're just trying to do as much as we can to push out great resources for students because we know that they've got a lot going on right now, and we're worried about their coping skills and their ability to stay healthy during all of this.
Yeah, it's an important part. All right, let's talk a little bit about change, and in this instance, cataclysmic change. So, education for as long as I can remember, 10, 15 years has been ripe for innovation, as they say, right? And I assume, like most organizations, the leaders are always looking at the competition and looking like what might impact our university or our business model. And there's a lot out there, but Google recently introduced a 6-month career certificate that could potentially threaten or disrupt higher education with the equivalent of a 4-year degree. And then there's, Udacity and any number of other kind of disruptors. How do you, as presidents of colleges and universities, view these threats? Is it something that's a high priority? Do you look to partner? Do you look to mimic and copy? How do you deal with those? Starting with you, President Huffelin.
I guess I wouldn't use the word threat there. I do think that we certainly have to pay attention to the marketplace and what's out there. But, in the case of Google and their certificate, we've been doing certificates at the community college since we began, right? Short-term, very focused, skill-based training. So that's not really a new concept. It's new that Google's launching it, but it's not necessarily new to us in terms of really reducing a skill set to a very short-term focused program. And I think that's really important, especially right now. We saw in our Learn to Work program, we saw people coming back to school immediately with the pandemic to say, I've got to get retrained quickly. I need a focus skill and I got to get back into the workforce. So we do that right alongside Google. I don't see that offering of theirs disrupting us too much. I will say that one of the things I think it's helping us talk about is the myriad of kinds of degrees and certificates you can get in higher education. College is not just a 4-year degree. I mean, everybody thinks about college that way, right? The residence hall and the football games, like you just said, the parties. Yeah. But there's lots of college that is a 6-month certificate, and then you can come back later and build on that, or a 2-year degree. So I think if nothing else, it's really opening the conversation to the various ways you can actually connect with college. And so the other thing I would say is that there will always be room for skills around a specific set of skills that are learned, experiential learning that happens here on a college campus. You were just talking about those things that are kind of intangibles, but we know they help someone develop and find themselves and establish their purpose, et cetera. So that's a longer term developmental process that a certificate isn't going to necessarily bring to the table for a student. So I think the marketplace is okay to have a lot of different options for people at different times in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. President Watkins, same question there with how
Yeah.
you and the
Couldn't
university.
agree more. Could not agree more that threats is not the right way to think about this. This is an opportunity, and the pandemic has opened some new doors for us. So one of the things we don't do as well as we could in post-secondary ed is connect with industry. What does industry need? What does industry want from a skill set? And in addition to what President Huffdelen was saying about different elements, certificates, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, there's no reason that these things can't be happening at the same time. So I might be here pursuing a psychology degree, but I also want to learn coding. I want to have a stronger data analytics background because I know it's going to help me with employment. But I also want to learn to write and think and solve problems and learn about different cultures because I know that's what's going to let me move up in my career and in my company. Whereas a short-term skill-based program is actually the most at risk at being obsolete. So you kind of want to think about this more like a continuum and not a category, that you can pursue a very workforce-oriented credential and a degree, and they don't have to be separate pathways for different people. It can be the same person at different times in their life. So where I do think we can do better is to listen more and be more nimble at adapting to what matters to the industries around us and adapt our curriculum accordingly. But while not losing sight of the fact that, we produce people that need a job, but we also help people invent their fifth job that they can't even conceive of today. So we need to keep doing all those things. Another area where I think we can really improve, where we have enormous opportunity, is to work more effectively together. So not to have a community college president and a university president who don't communicate and connect, but instead quite the opposite. That we're thinking about students all the time who want to be students at both our institutions.
Yeah. Great. So you've got your current students, and obviously in 2020 you have all sorts of curveballs being thrown your way. I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question. When you're not treading water, trying to figure out your next moves in the 6-month period, you've got a group of students that will start showing up at your doorsteps in the next 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they will have spent an inordinate amount of time looking at screens and watching school on screens. And at what point will you guys start to adapt to that marketplace of like, all right, there's a whole group coming and they're like really kind of addicted to the online learning or the screens as a way to interact with their instructors? What's your timeline there to kind of adapt to that next wave?
Now.
Now.
Yeah, because what are we learning here? There's really very little value to a large lecture hall where people are passively sitting and there's a sage on the stage, right? We don't need to do that anymore. Video, lecture capture, there's a lot of better ways to do that. So let's do that, but then use your in-person time for experiential, interactive, problem solving, group work. Use in person for what it's good for and use technology for what it's good for. And I think we are doing that now and we need to do it more, better, and faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we started doing, everybody started doing that, about 10 years ago. You hear about the flipped classroom, right? So let's do the kind of the lecture part virtually and then come and let's have these experiences. And I will say that, a lot of what we're doing with our teachers is really helping them think about high impact practices and how to engage students much more actively when they're in person. And our faculty are fabulous. They have remarkable ways of, whether it's, these real wicked problems, solving real problems in our society, or undergraduate research, or study abroad, or service learning. There's some things that have been in our portfolio for many years that I think it's just gonna ramp those up and highlight them even more, and we'll learn and build even better experiences.
Yeah. This will be just for you, President Hufflin, and it sounds like you guys are kind of opposite from this study that I read from. It was from the Wall Street Journal, that enrollment at community colleges has fallen almost 19% nationally. And the worry is there that, the community colleges, oftentimes it's first time students going to college or working mothers. It's a little bit different than who might go to the University of Utah. And so the worry there is like, they took that semester off or took this year off and they might not ever get back in the saddle. What are you doing as Salt Lake Community College to kind of combat that and make sure that doesn't happen, at least here in Utah?
Yeah, we are not immune from that, Garrett. Our enrollment was down 7.5% this fall. Most of my colleagues, some of them were a little down, but most of them were flat or even had really grew. And what I will share about what I worry about is I think this pandemic and this financial downturn has exposed even greater the economic divide that's happening in our country. And literally, we are the second lowest tuition in the state. We have remarkable scholarships and financial aid, and still students felt like they couldn't come. So that tells you something, right? That tells you something about the financial situation that some of our students are in. And I really worry that we've got to find a way to, kind of close that economic divide and be really mindful about what's happening in our communities that's splitting these people and creating the fact that, it's an opportunity cost for them to come to college. They've got 3 jobs or they've got a family that they're trying to support. And so they really put their enrollment off. And we know that Utah has one of the highest percentages of some college, no degree. And I don't know about you, but when I look at a resume, I don't look at the number of credits that someone earned. I look to see whether they've got a degree or a credential. So we've got to get those people back too. We've got to get them, those that might be underemployed or thinking they can just work right out of high school. We've got to have them see the value of this degree, as President Watkins just said, to help them kind of jumpstart the social mobility and the economic mobility that they're going to rely on in the future. So I'm very worried about those enrollment drops and what that says about our capital city and the economic divide that's happening here.
Yeah, that hopefully, won't be felt long term, but if it's not addressed now, it definitely will be, and it's just not fair to those that were in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, all right. So I spent time at Salt Lake Community College and graduated from the university.
We should have started with that, Garrett. That should have been your lead statement.
I know. Well, and the Salt Lake Community College campus has changed a lot, and there's all sorts of cool buildings and all sorts of stuff that wasn't there when I was there. And then obviously the University of Utah campus has changed like day to night almost. But I know when I was going to transfer up to the U after a semester to the community college, and there was a card table with somebody from the University of Utah in the commons area at the community college. And obviously there's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes to sync up the two, but that was kind of it at the time. Like, all right, well, you want to go to the U? Yeah. Okay, what do I need to do? But I know a lot's changed for the better, but can you talk to your guys' partnerships that you have in the works currently, and then ones that you'd hope to build into the future from Salt Lake Community College and University of Utah?
You want to start with that, Ruth?
Sure. I'd say President Hufflin and I are very delighted to work together, and we do it a lot. We know that this is in the best interest of students. We know that there are a lot of people that will be most affordably served and better served by starting at Salt Lake Community College and having a strong and smooth pathway to the U. So we have a number of partnerships that have worked on easing the transfer process, making things clear. What I like to think about is to think of it more as a simultaneous process than a sequential one. Because if you are planning from the beginning of your college career, you will have an easier path. And I think we are doing much better at that together with agreements across our institutions that really support that. We also have, we hope, a really exciting project where we would be together under one roof in Harriman. And I should let President Hufflin talk about that.
Yes, we have a building in production, I guess, that I would say. Last legislative session, we were given funding graciously by the legislature to build the first building ever where we've had a community college and a University of Utah under one roof. So we purchased land in Harriman many, many years ago, and we've always planned on having a building there. But a few years ago, we realized it would be much better to, we know that most of our students want to get they want to get a baccalaureate degree, and most of them want to get it from the U because they're geographically situated here in the Valley. So we thought, why not just include both of us under one roof? And it's been a wonderful project where I'm thrilled that it finally got funded. Unfortunately, the funding went away because of the coronavirus pandemic and the financial situation we find ourselves in. I'm very hopeful that it'll bounce back and we'll be able to start construction. When we talk to the folks in Harriman and Bluffdale and Riverton about that option, they just light up. I mean, first of all, there's a huge pipeline in the junior high and high school out there that really needs access to higher ed. But they also really appreciate the partnership, this idea that we're working together, that we're being more efficient with our dollars, and that we're saving the air quality, from having to travel clear across the valley to move to another degree. So it's just a win-win-win in my mind. And I'm so thrilled to have President Watkins as a partner because she's a brilliant thinker and a great collaborator. And so there's no end to what we can do when we get our minds together. We have fun together, and that fun generates good ideas, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds better than the card table that I dealt with. That's great. Couple more questions. This one's just going to be fun. I've got several family members that are, principals or superintendents, and if they have to go to sporting events a lot, and they don't like sports. So that's probably the worst part of their job. So I won't ask what's the worst part of y'all's job, but what's the best part of your job leading Salt Lake Community College and the University of Utah? Start with you, President Heflin.
Oh, it's by far, there's so many great things about my job. I love my job, but I would say the best part of my job is commencement. When I'm on the stage and I'm watching students walk across the stage, we still shake everybody's hand. And the outcry and the balloons and the bullhorns and the confetti from family members who are so thrilled that their first generation student is finishing with a degree, or that their mom and dad is finishing with a degree. That day is just a culminating kind of emotional, very visceral experience at the transformational power of education. And I get even a little misty talking about it. It's just a really powerful day where we recognize that the work we do matters. And that's a good way to wake up every morning.
Yeah, absolutely. President Watkins?
I would say just to kind of compliment, because of course I love completion of college too, and our students are wonderful. I want to just highlight, though, that one element of the U's mission that is really unique in the state is our role in research and discovery, innovation. And of course, right now we have people working on coronavirus. We have a COVID-19 vaccine trial happening on campus. We have remarkable innovators who are solving some of the biggest problems of our time right here at your University of Utah. And the very best part of that is with those remarkable people, one of them just won a MacArthur Genius Prize on our faculty, is that students get to be part of that. Students are in those research labs. Students are part of those discoveries. Students are working with faculty members on their books and their scholarly discoveries. And that is really special. So I have to say, I'm amazed every day at the work that is happening on this campus and how it impacts society.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't get depressed very often. But when I do, I just go and walk the University of Utah campus because it brings back so many happy memories of that time in my life. And that gets me out of whatever small funk I was in. So I imagine there's a lot of reward in your respective positions there. All right, second to last question. The last question, if you want to start thinking about it, will be how can the Silicon Slopes community support the University of Utah and Salt Lake Community College? But what are the silver linings of 2020 for you as president, starting with you, President Watkins?
I think we've discovered we have amazing people that will work together through the most difficult problems and the most difficult times. I really want to give a shout out to our many thousands of employees at University of Utah Health, hospitals and clinics who have had to come every single day, even through some anxiety and some difficult times, and they keep caring for patients and we keep solving problems. So talk about a bright spot. I think we have seen the very best that people can do and do for each other. And that is heartening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it has to be, that answer has to be I don't want to use, I hate the word, I don't hate it, but I'm really tired of the word resilience. But there's just this ability to step in to whatever the world is throwing them and be willing to figure it out because they know the importance of the work they do. Whether it was our custodial staff or whether it was our faculty members or whether it was our folks that are, out in the grounds crew or in our IT people who had to totally figure out how to help all these people go remote. I mean, everybody in their different respective areas just stepped in to figure out and to be kind towards one another. We did not have a lot of, fights and anxiety or anger. We just had people stepping up and figuring it out. And that was just remarkable. And I'm so, so appreciative to the way that our faculty and staff handled that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even from a distance, it was admirable to watch that things kept going in sequence. And obviously there's thousands of hours of behind the scenes work going into that. But yeah, congrats to your teams for being able to adjust on the fly. Okay, so that last question, we can start with you, President Huftelin. How can the Silicon Slopes community support Salt Lake Community College?
So I would say two things that come to mind right off the bat. The first is what President Watkins referred to earlier. What do you need from in your workforce? How can we help train your workforce? So are there short-term certificates? Are there more, baccalaureate or master's degrees? What are the levels of skills and education you need? And how do we strengthen our communication with each other so that we can really react quickly to that and be the provider of those skills or that education for you? I think there's room to grow there for us, certainly, with that relationship. And I would love to be able to offer us, up as a flexible offering for you all. The other is, and you mentioned it earlier, internships, helping our students have very real life experiences with all of your many remarkable, creative, innovative companies. There's nothing better than getting a student out into the real world, working alongside really cool, brilliant professionals. So to the extent that we could strengthen internships, that would be fabulous.
Yeah. President Watkins?
So you know what, I'd say I want to go back to your question, where you kind of talked about the career certificates and the 6-month Google degree kind of concept, because why don't we, in our wonderful ecosystem here in Salt Lake, try to create our own version of that? So let's think about this a little bit. We have so many talented students, and a whole bunch of them are in fields where there's not a clear pathway to a job. They might be psychology majors, history majors, English majors. These are smart people who can write, think, solve problems, understand cultural diversity. And in fact, diversity is very well represented in those fields. About 1 in 5 of those graduates, maybe 1 in 4, are students of color here at the U. I know those are people that Silicon Slopes companies want to hire. Mm-hmm. They need a bridge between us. They need an apprenticeship. They need an internship. They need a short-term program to complement their degree. Let's create that together, and let's create an innovative way to finance it, because many of those students will need a financial bridge. That would be a wonderful innovation for us to create together here in Salt Lake Valley.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think there will be plenty of folks that would step up to that task. And as with all things, it's just finding the right timing and the right partner and all of that. So very cool. I could keep going all day with these questions because I find it interesting, but I know you're both very busy, and we very much appreciate you both carving out time to be on the Silicon Slopes Town Hall. And we appreciate both of you being partners of Silicon Slopes over the years. And we very much value your universities and your college. So thank you. And again, appreciate your time, and we look forward to working together into the future.
Thank you so much. Stay well. And, they don't come any better than President Denise Huptelin. So it's the times are good for us to develop partnerships together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would just say, good to be with you, Garrett. Thank you for thinking of us, and especially thank you for partnering us, because I do believe that Ruth always says we're better together. We can go further together, and I really believe that. And this is this trio right now on this call could do some really cool things together. So thanks for including us, and I hope everybody has a very happy holiday.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Stay well.
CBRE is pleased to partner with Silicon Slopes in providing you with this town hall event. Our company first landed in Utah the year that I was born, 1984. And since then, it's been one of our top priorities to partner with really great community organizations. We admire the impressive contributions that Silicon Slopes makes to our great state. As a director of Global Advisory and Transaction Services, our group focuses on helping companies grow their real estate footprint nationally and globally. In doing so, we take into account your company's goals: reducing cost, scaling quickly, maintaining flexibility in your space, or maybe just finding the markets with the very best talent. It's never been more important, and also more difficult, than now to develop the right real estate plan globally. And yet, tech companies reach out to CBRE as the global gold standard in developing their real estate plans and carrying out their real estate needs globally. We help you physically take your company to the world. 2/3 of the globe is covered by water, and the other third is covered by CBRE. We invest in technology so that we can help you invest in your future. Find out more about how we can help you at cbre.com.